Hello everyone, I hope you can hear me. My name is Julio Costa and I'm here to introduce you again this initiative, which is a joint webinar series between Big HPC Project and the UT Austin Portugal program. In this session, we welcome attendees from the Centro 5 meeting, this year focusing on HPC and AI convergence for smart connected communities, organized by INESCTech. CENTA stands for Collaborations to Enable Transnational Cyber Infrastructure Applications, a partnership and involving framework for collaboration among research centers, institutes, and laboratories worldwide. I wish to thank you for attending to this session. In this webinar, a research from INESCTech will explore the question, is HPC ready for big data storage? Today, our speaker is João Paulo. He is an invited professor from University of Minho and researched at HasLab, one of the research units of INESCTech and the University of Minho. His research is focused on large-scale distributed systems with an emphasis on storage and database system scalability, performance, security, and dependability. Furthermore, he is interested on the applicability of such research for solving complex data management challenges for cloud computing and HPC centers. As of myself, I will be the moderator of this session. I am a data analyst working for Wavecom, and I'm currently developing the monitoring component for the Big HPC project. The words big data and data science really started to highly appeal to me during my thesis, where I first encountered some of the issues of working with lots of data. I fully believe that the Big HPC project is an essential step forward that will allow a much more efficient workflow with applications that require tremendous amount of data processing. I would like you to inform you that you can and you should interact during the presentation. For that, you can use the Q&A to share your questions. During the presentation, there will be no discussion moments, but on the end of the webinar, we have some minutes to discuss all the questions and interact directly with you. If you have any technical issue, please say so using the chat. I will be monitoring chat and QA activity regularly and ensure that all your questions are dealt by the speaker at the right time. There are some key points I would like to inform you about before we start. Please maintain your microphone in mute during the session to prevent background noises and only turn it on when needed or asked to. The session will be recorded and you will have access to it in the end. If you want to share your questions live, when the discussion starts at the end of the presentations, click raise hand to have your say. Now, we can finally start the presentation. João, the screen is yours. Please feel free to start.
Thank you for the introduction, Julio. Let me just share my screen. I guess you are seeing the slides now. Okay, so I would also like to greet and thank everyone that is attending this webinar. And what I want to discuss with you today is the challenges that big data applications bring for HPC infrastructures, and mostly in terms of data storage. And the presentation I'm going to do, I'm going to discuss some of the challenges and some of the possible solutions for this. Of course, I will not be able to go into detail for all of these challenges, so feel free to, at the end of the presentation, to ask any questions. And I will also leave my email contact, so feel free to contact me after the presentation. And before starting with the challenges of big data, let's first answer the question, what is a supercomputer? And I believe there are two important perspectives regarding supercomputers. The first one is from the point of view of users. And for users, a supercomputer is seen like a regular computer, so it's used like a regular computer. I can run my applications there, my studies, my analysis of data, etc. But the nice thing is that this computer has a lot of power in terms of computation and storage. So I can do a lot of things that if I was going to do them on my personal computer, I'll take years to do, and I can do it in minutes in a supercomputer. And why are supercomputers useful, or for what areas? Well, traditionally, the supercomputers have been used for running several scientific applications for areas such as physics, chemistry, biology, etc. And this is the point of view of a user. Okay, so I use a more or less regular computer, but this is a supercomputer with lots of power. And then we have the perspective from the people that manage these supercomputers. And actually, this is not a single computer, okay? It's a set of servers, interconnected servers, hundreds to thousands of servers. And some of these servers are used to run the applications and do all the computations that we need to do. Other servers are used to store the data, because many of these studies require accessing data and analyzing it, and they also generate some data that needs to be stored. And from the point of view of a system administrator, to provide this nice abstraction for the user of having one computer that is very powerful, actually the system administrator needs to manage a lot of servers, needs to ensure that applications run in these servers with efficiently, with good performance, that the HPC infrastructure is dependable, does not fail and compromises the service being provided to users, is secure, and so on. And so this is, I think this perspective is important to understand the next slides. And there is another point that is important, which is the emergence of a new kind of applications. Well, they are actually not that new, but big data applications, such as data analytics and artificial intelligence. And these applications are very useful because they can provide very nice models and predictions and help on decision support for different areas such as healthcare, finance, etc. And the thing about this type of applications is that the applications thrive on data. They need lots of data to provide accurate results. And they also need a lot of computational power. So merging big data with HPC, it's something that seems a very nice idea, right? Because again, we have applications that require high computational power and storage, and we have the infrastructure to provide it. The problem is that these applications, again, as I was telling you, are focused on data. And they, in fact, if, for instance, I'm running machine learning workload and training some model, probably this machine learning job will need to access gigabytes to terabytes of data. And this is a lot of information, as you can see in this slide. So 1 terabyte of data is a lot of photos, a lot of movie hours. And for these applications need to access this information and need to store it at the HPC infrastructure. And the problem here is usually at an HPC infrastructure, there are a lot of compute nodes, the nodes where the applications run and do computations. And then there are some storage nodes, but the number of storage nodes is inferior to the number of compute nodes, which means that some of these applications are going to access data stored in the same node. So they are going to share resources. And when we have several applications trying to access resources on the same server, they are going to compete for these resources. And in many cases, this will lead to unstable performance. And for instance, there are several reports from known HPC centers, such as TAC, where sometimes this competition for storage resources leads to breaking the storage service and making the supercomputer unavailable. And this is the problem, the main issue I want to discuss with you today. So how can we avoid this storage bottleneck and make the applications more efficient when accessing data at HPC infrastructures. But I think that in order to understand this large issue, we need to go into detail about what are the challenges regarding this new type of big data applications and the storage systems that are now deployed at HPC infrastructures. Starting with the big data applications, the challenges are the following. We call big data applications, it's a nice name, but these applications are very different. Some of them depend more on having a large pool of computational resources. Others require efficient access to data. Some of these applications are accessing very large files. Others are accessing a very large number of small files. Some of these applications require the storage backend to provide to handle efficiently metadata operations, while other applications require accessing data efficiently, but the metadata operations are not that intensive. Then these applications also require different access patterns from the storage. Some of these applications access storage files sequentially, others access it in a random fashion. And this is difficult because the storage backend where all this data is being stored needs to handle all these different types of applications. And since this is difficult to achieve, have a single solution that solves all these problems, what is usually done is the developers implement optimizations inside these applications. For instance, I have here in this figure an example for TensorFlow and PyTorch application. And as you can see, TensorFlow implements some data caching to have data closer to the application when retrieving it, some prefetching mechanisms to fetch data from the storage backend earlier and have all the data required for computations earlier. But these optimizations, are implemented inside the application, in this case, inside TensorFlow. And although this is nice because the developers doing this are doing optimal code to manage TensorFlow data and can do this in a very efficient way, the problem is these optimizations only work for TensorFlow. For instance, if we want to port the prefetching optimization to another framework, PyTorch, for example, and this will be very difficult to achieve. And another issue is that these application-specific optimizations are implemented in isolation. So again, if you remember the previous slide, I was saying that several big data applications will be competing for storage resources. And all these applications will have optimizations to be very fast when accessing data. But the problem is that these applications are not aware of each other, and the optimizations are not aware of each other either. And again, by trying to be very fast when retrieving data, they are generating more competition at the storage backend, at the shared storage backend. And this will be worse, in fact, and optimizations will not work because there will be no fairness when accessing this storage backend. And now, going to the storage infrastructure, and as an example, I have here a typical storage backend that is used on HPC infrastructure, which is the Lustre file system, which provides a very nice POSIX abstraction. Most of applications know how to interact with a POSIX interface. And what is the problem which is related with the challenge I showed you for big data applications? Which are the problems of these storage backends currently? The thing is, again, to avoid having all these specific optimizations at applications, the storage backend also implements some optimizations. caching, I/O scheduling, and so on. The problem is that this component is monolithic. So all the optimizations are implemented inside this component. There are a lot of optimizations there. They are hard to configure. The systems become very large in terms of code base, so it's difficult to extend their code. And additionally, this Lustre file system, for example, it is a critical component of an HPC infrastructure. It is the place where all the data is being stored. And if we want to try another solution, let's try another file system, or let's try to do some patching over Lustre to improve something. This is hard to do for a system that is in production, because we may lose data from users. So doing optimizations and new developments at the storage backend, it's not an easy task. Furthermore, as I said, all these storage backends implement a lot of different optimizations, but even with these, they are known to be inefficient for some storage workloads. And in the concrete case of HPC, we know that, for instance, the Lustre file system can handle well data operations, but it's not that efficient for metadata operations. So applications that are metadata intensive in terms of I/O requests can easily overload this file system. Also, file systems are not good for random storage accesses. Typically, sequential accesses are better to handle. And again, this file system handles a lot of applications, so it is a point of contention in terms of I/O. And again, it is important to remember that we can put a lot of optimizations at the storage backend, at the Lustre file system, but applications that, in many cases, the file system is not aware of the applications that are writing to it. And so it cannot differentiate the applications that are issuing requests, and it's hard to configure some optimizations for this application and another set of optimizations for another application. So it's difficult to be specific. And finally, and to overcome some of these problems, supercomputers, or the infrastructure of HPC, usually contains, in some infrastructures, there are local disks at the compute nodes. And why are these local disks important? Well, they are important because, as I was telling you, having all the applications writing and reading from the storage backend will create contention. So a nice way to alleviate this problem is, okay, so the application, instead of writing to the storage backend, or the job, writes data temporarily to the local disk and reads from the local disk. The local disk is not shared, it's just, it's dedicated for that application. And so we are removing some contention from the shared storage backend. The problem is, at the moment, the decision to use or not this local disk is typically from the user. So the user needs to manually configure a job or an application to use this local disk. So this is not transparent. And writing all the data to the local disk when the job starts, and reading the data and doing some updates while the job is running, and after the job finishes, moving this data back to the storage backend, it's a complex task. And it's just easier to do everything at the shared storage backend, because I can have a job writing some data to the shared storage backend, and then I can launch another job in another compute node, and this job will have access to this data because it is on a shared storage backend. So these local disks are a good idea, but usually they are not used as much as we desired. And these are the main challenges I wanted to discuss with you. Before going, and now I want to give you some ideas on how we can try to address these challenges. But before that, the ideas I'm going to talk next come from different international projects where we are partners. The nice thing about these projects is that these are international projects with partners from academia, from HPC centers, from industry. We have collaborations with partners from the United States and from Japan. So this is a transnational collaboration, which is very nice. And the three projects I have here, the first two, Big HPC and Pastor, are being done under the scope of the UT Austin Portugal program. And the third project is being done under the scope of the Centra initiative. If you want to know a bit more about this, you can check the websites I have here in the slide. And now going to the way we believe that we can address the challenges I discussed previously. Our main, this is a question. There is a paradigm called software-defined storage, which has been used for in cloud infrastructures for trying to ease the management of storage at cloud infrastructures. And the question we pose is, can we use software-defined storage for solving the storage problems at HPC infrastructures? And I believe so, although there are some challenges that we need to address. But before going into those challenges, why is software-defined storage an interesting solution? Well, the first thing is that software-defined storage tries to decouple the way the optimizations are done from the way they are configured. And this is done by providing two main planes. A data plane, which is the place where the I/O optimizations, caching, tiering, scheduling are done. And the data plane knows how to efficiently do these optimizations, but it's not aware of what other optimizations are being done at the storage infrastructure of HPC centers. And since the data plane is not aware of this, there is another plane called the control plane, which has holistic visibility of all the storage resources and applications running in a distributed infrastructure, and can, with this global visibility, ensure that all the data planes, all the optimizations at the data plane are being done correctly and configured correctly. Also, this is the philosophy of software-defined storage, but there are also two requirements that are very important for HPC infrastructures, which is the solution we propose needs to be easy to integrate with existing HPC software and hardware, and we do not want to change the way users deploy their applications and jobs, and we also don't want to make the life for system administrators more hard in terms of configurations of the storage component. And this is the general overview of software-defined storage. Let me now focus on each of these planes, and let's start with the data plane. So the data plane sits between, it's a middleware that sits between the application, TensorFlow, PyTorch, a scientific application, and the data plane sits between this application and the storage resources. And the storage resources can be the shared storage backend of HPC infrastructure or the local disk. And the goal of this data plane is to mediate I/O requests being issued by the applications. Also, the goal is to avoid any modifications at the applications or the storage resources. So we don't, as I told you previously, we don't want to change the Lustre file system because all the data is stored there and we don't want to mess with that. Also, we want to be transparent for users, so we don't want them to have to rewrite all their applications to run with this solution. But the nice thing is that since this data plane sits between the application and the storage resources, it is aware of the application that it is mediating requests. So we have optimizations that can be aware of the applications that these are being applied to. And again, we want to be transparent to users, as I told. And another nice feature of the data plane is that the data plane is divided into stages. Each stage implements a given optimization. In this figure, for example, I have caching, a cache layer or a cache stage. And ideally, each stage implements a specific optimization, cache, scheduling, compression. And the goal for doing this is to have easy to maintain optimizations and also to have reusable optimizations. For instance, in this figure, the same cache optimization can be applied to application 1 and to application N. Of course, we may want to change the caching algorithm, but we can have more or less the same optimization, the same implementation, the same code base, and we just need to have different caching policies. And finally, the other important aspect is that these stages are stackable. And so, for instance, for application 1, I can choose to have a cache to speed up storage accesses, but I also may want to have data compression because the data being generated by this application is highly compressible, and I can save some storage space and network bandwidth if I compress the data before storing it at the storage backend or the local disk. But on the other hand, for application N, I can the data is not compressible, so I will not gain anything for having a stage with compression. But for instance, I may want to schedule different operations being issued by the application and schedule them differently. And if I want to do this, I can have another stage which implements this scheduling mechanism. And this is an overview of the data plane and the nice feature that it possesses. But as I told you, just porting existing data planes that are typically applied in cloud infrastructures is not easy when we are going to HPC. And the main challenges are the following. So the first challenge is, okay, a data plane stage or a data plane sits between the application and HPC storage and should be transparent to applications while supporting very different applications with different interfaces. So how can I have one solution, a data plane solution that is able to support all these interfaces? So choosing the right interface is not easy. And if it's not the right one, I need to change the application. And a nice way to solve this in cloud infrastructure is, since cloud infrastructures are highly virtualized and they use virtual machines, maybe I can have this data plane as a virtual disk driver of the virtual machine. And this is generic. All the applications run inside virtual machines, and when they are talking to the storage, they need to talk through a virtual disk drive. And I can have all the data plane stages implemented there. But in HPC, most of these jobs or applications are running in bare metal. So I don't have virtual machines. And having the correct interface is not easy. Then, even if I'm able to say, okay, maybe I cannot support all applications, but again, if I follow a POSIX compliant interface, all applications that usually talk to a file system are supported. So this would be a very nice interface to support. That is correct. But the problem now is, what type of optimizations can I implement at the data plane just by supporting a POSIX interface? And I have here an example. And for instance, this is an application that is issuing foreground tasks, so writing data and reading data as a foreground job. But then in background, there is another task that is responsible for doing some compaction of data, some logging. And the foreground operations are critical and must be done as soon as possible, the background operations can be delayed a bit. But when I tried to implement this at the application, this is easy to implement, right? If the optimization is tightly coupled, I can just see in the application the code that is issuing foreground operations and background operations, and I can, for instance, schedule them differently to give high priority to the foreground ones. But when I'm doing this at a data plane stage, exposing a POSIX interface, the data plane stage only sees read requests or write requests arriving. And so we don't know if this read or write request is being issued by a foreground operation or a background operation. And the problem here is that we cannot implement that scheduling algorithm at the data plane. And if we cannot do this at the data plane, again, we need to go back and implement these optimizations at the application and lose all the nice features of having these optimizations isolated. In order to solve this challenge, there is some work that we have proposed recently, PIO, which is a framework used for building data plane stages. The nice features are it is easy to integrate with the different applications. It already talks with STS control planes. I'll talk about this in a few minutes, and can also be integrated with other user space storage frameworks, which are trying to port storage optimizations to user space, such as file system optimizations, block device optimizations, and so on. Another feature of PIO is that the way optimizations are developed is supposed to be extensible and highly programmable, so it's easy to support new optimizations. And one of the main contributions of this work is that we provide a new way for propagating context from the application to the data plane stage in order, for instance, to differentiate these foreground and background flows. And PIO is a framework to build data plane stages, but I'm going to give you some examples of what these stages could be. In PIO, we have stages for I/O prioritization and scheduling for two different applications, TensorFlow and RocksDB. Then we have been doing some other work, Monarch and Prisma, which are focused on, Monarch is focused on leveraging the local disk at HPC compute nodes to store data when the deep learning training workloads are running. And the idea is to do this transparently for the user. So the user does not need to manually state that the training data set will be read from the local disk. So we can do this transparently. And this is nice because we are not only using the local disk resources, but we are reducing some pressure on the shared storage backend. Then we have Prisma, which is can be another stage. And the optimization we propose in Prisma is data prefetching for speeding up the deep learning training workloads. And the nice thing about this is that with Prisma, we can enable prefetch in frameworks such as PyTorch that don't have this optimization. And of course, there are other mechanisms or other storage mechanisms or features that could be implemented as data plane stages, things like compression, deduplication, encryption, and so on. So this is work that has not been done, and these are open challenges. Having talked about the data plane, let me just quickly go to the control plane. And this is a vision for the control plane based on the way this type of component has been proposed for cloud infrastructures. But again, this is just a vision, so we know that these are the main components, but there is still a lot of things that need to be defined for HPC and a lot of open and interesting research challenges here. So how does the control plane works? Well, in terms of interaction with external components, the first thing is that the control plane is responsible for seeing all the storage resources and applications running in HPC infrastructures, and ensuring that some IO policies are being met. What are these IO policies? For instance, I want to prioritize applications from a given user to run faster. I want to rate limit some applications that are saturating the Lustre file system. So these are the type of policies. And these policies can be specified by users or system administrators. And the way these policies are specified is through control applications. And the goal of control applications is to have a nice interface and API for specifying these policies. Then the control plane is responsible, after knowing the policies that it needs to ensure, is responsible for configuring the data plane stages, the storage optimizations, to ensure that they are doing what is necessary for the applications and for the policies. And for this to be possible, of course, the control plane can only take accurate and efficient decisions if it knows how the HPC infrastructure is behaving. So it needs to collect metrics, monitoring metrics from the applications, the resources at compute nodes that are being spent, the storage resources, and how these are being used. And these are the external components. Now going into the internal components of the control plane. Well, first, the control plane needs to store some metadata, some information. It needs to know where the data plane stages are residing, in which compute nodes, what applications are in these compute nodes. And this is important to ensure that when taking decisions, it enforces these actions at the right data plane stages. It also needs to store the policies and can cache some monitoring metrics. These monitoring metrics can be provided from an internal system monitor. And here, the goal of this system monitor is not to replace the monitoring framework that already exists at the HPC infrastructures. The idea here is that the system monitor should be able to filter and pre-process some of the monitoring metrics that are being collected from the HPC infrastructure and filter the right ones that are needed to take decisions at the control plane. And finally, we have a planning engine. The goal of this is the brain of the control plane, right? It is where the policies specified by users are translated into a given plan and into control algorithms that can be based on things like control theory or machine learning. And the goal of these control algorithms is to choose the best decision to enforce the policies and act accordingly, and configuring the data plane stages as best as possible to ensure all the policies. Of course, this is just a vision of the components of the control plane. This is something that needs to be refined for HPC, but there is another very important issue. And this issue is, if we are talking about a distributed infrastructure with thousands of nodes, thousands of jobs and data plane stages there. And of course, the control plane cannot be centralized. This needs to be distributed to handle all this scale of HPC infrastructures. And the problem here is that it is not only seeing what is happening for thousands of jobs, it's collecting monitoring metrics from all these jobs and compute nodes. And with these metrics and the specified policies, building the correct plans and applying the correct actions at data plane stages. So in terms of scale, this is very huge. And of course, we need a decentralized design for the control plane. This cannot be centralized. And it's something that is a bit overlooked in current research work. And if we want to make this decentralized, there are some decisions that we need to make. We have a lot of controllers, small units of the control plane, and all these controllers take have the same responsibility and take decisions globally? Do we have an hierarchic design where there are sub-controllers that only manage a specific set of policies, of users or stages? again, this is something that needs to be further explored. And of course, it is also important to talk about dependability. The goal of HPC infrastructure is to be highly available. So a distributed control plane architecture needs also to be able to handle the failure of controllers. So in summary, we have been witnessing convergence between big data and HPC big data workloads and HPC infrastructures. We cannot forget that more and more these big data applications are data-centric, and if HPC centers only advance on the computational power provided to users, the data storage component becomes overlooked. So the data storage component must advance also with the computational power. The way we see that this can be solved is if there is a way to have an holistic visibility of the infrastructure, and we can control the infrastructure and storage resources globally. The optimizations need to be done in an application-aware fashion. So we need to know what applications are running to know the best optimizations for them, and also to avoid having a lot of different optimizations for each application. We should have maintainable and reusable solutions. While SDS provides an interesting solution, there are still several challenges to be addressed. And for instance, for the data plane, there are additional features that we can implement as stages. There are new storage technologies, such as persistent memory, that for sure will be available on supercomputers, and they have different interfaces that need to be supported. And there are several HPC libraries that are being used in HPC centers and need to be integrated with these optimizations and this data plane. For the control plane, again, scalability, it's one of the major challenges, but also we need to look at how these control applications and algorithms can be built. Should we use control theory? Should we use machine learning? How can we build efficient algorithms for the control plane? And finally, most of these things I've been discussing, most of the work provides different interfaces for the data plane and control plane to interact. This needs, ideally, there would be a standard interface for this, so that people can develop different solutions and they can be used together. And finally, the control plane is going to monitor applications and ensure the best IO optimizations for these. This means that the software-defined solution must be integrated with all the ecosystem of the HPC infrastructure. For instance, it needs to be aware when jobs are being launched and scheduled, which means integrating with platforms such as Slurm, for instance. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you all. You have here my email if you have any questions, but feel free to ask the questions now, of course. Also, you have some additional information about the research we are doing at our group in the second website. Again, there are lots of challenges here. I'm happy to answer your questions, but I'm also happy to set up new collaborations. And these collaborations can be on the storage component, but also can be because someone has a very nice application that wants to deploy on HPC and is having some storage problems with this application. So we would be more than happy to try to apply our optimizations for those. Thank you. And now I'm open for questions.
Thank you, João, for your presentation. Very good. I have seen that we still do not have questions on the Q&A. Everyone is feel free to ask any question you want. Just leave it under there. If you want to ask your questions live, just tell us so we can give you permissions for using the camera and your microphone. However, since there are still no questions, I have some questions for João. So my first question, João, is you mentioned that the data plane sits between the application and the storage layer, but current IO stacks are a bit more complex than that, since they have several layers. As such, considering that I have several layers before submitting requests to storage, let's say an application, a database, and a user space file system, can I place different data plane stages between each set of layers, and which type of challenges can come with this?
Okay. The examples I showed in this presentation, you are correct. The data plane only, the stage is only appearing between an application and the storage resource. But of course, the I/O stack is larger than that. Even if you don't have an application, a database, and a file system, if you go to an HPC infrastructure, you can have a job running the application, and this will, the I/O requests can go through some intermediary storage nodes for buffering, and then to the lesser file system. So there are lots of stacks here, and the goal of having these data plane stages is to be able to apply them at different parts of the I/O stack. The challenges here are, the first one is, again, interfaces. So intercepting requests from an application issuing POSIX requests is one thing. Another one is doing things at the block device level. It's another thing. Another one is issuing SQL queries. It's another thing. So one of the challenges, again, how can the data plane stages sit between all these components and have the appropriate interface to avoid changing them? And then, of course, there is another problem, which is we may want to have all these data plane stages along the I/O stack, but we don't want them to. We want them to be able to be aware of each other and avoid doing redundant optimizations. But actually, this is not a problem. This is a nice thing about software-defined storage, which is we have a control plane for that. So this is a challenge, but that can be solved by the STS control plane.
Thank you, João. We have some questions on the chat and Q&A. The first one is from Amit Ruela. He is asking if you can provide overheads of other optimizations.
Yes. The overhead depends a lot on the way the stages are being built. And for instance, in the work I presented, the PIO, the overhead is negligible because the way the framework is built is to intercept requests at the user level of applications, and we use things like dynamic loading, so LD preload, and this does not have a huge impact in storage performance. In fact, the way PIO works is also we can even change a bit the application to use the interface of the stage. This is a bit intrusive, but if the application is just calling SDS read instead of a regular POSIX read, the overhead is minimal. Of course, if we try to apply this to other frameworks such as Fuse, we have an overhead of intercepting requests to the file system, the context switching between user space and kernel, and we may have some overhead. So the answer is it depends on the way the data plane stages are built.
Thank you again, João. We have a few more questions. So Miguel Castillo is asking, how big is big?
How big is big? It depends. It depends a lot. Again, it depends a lot on the things that users are running. The thing is that the actual problem now, the things that are, for instance, overloading the shared file system on HPC centers, we don't need a lot of data to overload it. For instance, we may have 100 megabytes, so this is not a lot of data, but if these 100 megabytes are from 100 different files. So each file has 1 megabyte. The problem is that the application will try to access all these files, and this will generate a lot of metadata requests that will break the shared file system. So we don't need a lot of data so that these optimizations are useful.
Thank you again, João. We have now a question from Centra. They are asking how will the STS work with high availability? Does this replace high availability or work with it? What are the pros and cons of each?
Okay. The idea of SDS is not to break the availability that the infrastructure already provides. So what I want to say, and the way we are applying, I showed you here that we are applying this paradigm. We don't want to mess, for instance, with a shared file system. So if the shared file system is replicating data and is high available, we don't want to change that. So if I just put some optimizations doing some caching and some IO scheduling between the application and the shared file system, I'm not breaking the availability. Of course, if this fails somehow, the application will not work. But again, it depends on the way the stages are implemented. If the stages are coupled with the application or the job, probably they only fail if the job also fails. The other problem is the control plane. And here is where I believe that high availability is a problem, because if the control plane fails, there are two options. One option is if the control plane fails, everything fails. The data planes cannot continue. Actually, this is not true. So we can do this with another better option. And the better option would be, even if the control plane becomes unavailable, the data plane stages can still intercept IO requests and handle them. The thing is that they will not be able to do this efficiently because some workloads might have changed, and the control plane should be detecting this and configuring the stages differently. And this is why the high availability of the control plane is important. So the software-defined storage needs to be highly available because it's another component of the storage stack, but this does not this is not sufficient so to ensure that jobs do not fail and the hardware does not fail. So all the techniques that are being applied in the management of the availability of HPC infrastructure still need to be done.
Thank you, João. We have some more questions coming in. I hope I don't mispronounce anyone's name. So this one is from Kaishi Takaishi. How does your framework detect the IO pattern on an application? Will the user manually provide the IO pattern, or will the framework automatically detect it?
That depends. That depends on the way the stage is implemented. So if I'm intercepting IO requests and I detect that these requests are accessing one file and are accessing the small blocks of the file sequentially, the data plane stage can detect this. So we can detect it. Of course, the problem here is what I was saying in one of the slides is if we need additional context from the application. So we can detect, of course, if you are intercepting calls to a file system, we can detect if files are being accessed randomly, sequentially, or in another fashion. But what we cannot detect is what operation at the application generated this read or write to this file. And if we need that, we need some instrumentation at the application. This does not become completely transparent for the user. The application needs to be slightly modified. And then the data plane stage will have the necessary knowledge.
Thank you, João. We still have one more question coming in from Saran. We saw that the optimizations are transparent to the user. For clarification of my understanding, does that mean the users don't have to modify their application to take advantage of the optimizations? If applications do not have to be modified, how does the application pass application-specific request information, like foreground versus background, to the data stages?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to answer in the previous question. And maybe I was not clear enough during the presentation, but there is a trade-off here. If all the information that the applications passes to the other component, for instance, the application to the file system, if intercepting these calls at the file system, when we do this, we have the necessary context. We can be fully transparent to the application. The user doesn't need to change it. But if we need to have additional context, there are some slight changes that need to be done at the application. I don't have the time to give all the details, but the idea is, even though these modifications are necessary, it is a lot easier to do than going to the other option, which is implementing the optimization at that specific application and having an optimization that only works for that application. But the PIO paper, I have a reference in one of the slides, explains this better.
Thank you, João. We have one final question from Jason Liu. He says, I see that separating data plane and control plane is quite difficult to encompass all different applications and optimization solutions. What is your view on this prospect of eventually converging to a standard interface for SDS?
I think that would be very, very important. SDS is based on software-defined network, and for software-defined network we have lots of standards, and it's easy to build data planes and control planes and to know what exact standards we need to comply with, so we can have different data plane solutions and control plane solutions interacting and working together. For the storage fields or for SDS, as far as I know, there are no standards. So this is I think this is one of the challenges, because I don't believe that one control plane solution will solve all the problems, or one data plane solution will also solve all the problems. This will depend on the type of infrastructure where we are applying this. If it's a cloud infrastructure, we need something different from HPC. If we are doing this on a private data center, maybe we don't need a data plane a control plane that scales for thousands of applications. So the standards will be very nice to have for having this interoperability.
Thank you, João. So I see we have no further questions. I'm going to share my screen so we can close the webinar. Can you...
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you for all your questions. It's time we close now. If you enjoyed this webinar, please stay tuned and be part of the upcoming one. The subject to be discussed will be monitoring in the big data era, and the next session will be on November 18, 2021. This webinar will introduce the challenges of monitoring HPCs and how we plan to approach it. Monitoring is one of the main components of the Big HPC project for improving the management of HPC data centers and big data applications. Stay safe and be with us in the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.